In the vast plains of medieval India, when the wind stopped blowing and the soil still burned long after sunset, peasants had to learn how to sleep inside the furnace of summer. There were no fans, no electricity, only the breath of wells, the whisper of night air, and rituals passed down through centuries to calm the heat. They didn't conquer the climate. They surrendered to it, adapting their bodies and minds to the rhythm of the land. Every night's rest became an act of quiet endurance, among the songs of crickets, the scent of dry earth, and the slow, living breath of the dark. In the lowlands of the Ganges and across the Deccan Plateau, summer could be merciless. By day, temperatures climbed above 45 degrees. By night, they rarely fell below 30 degrees. The air hung heavy and still, the ground radiating the heat it had swallowed from the sun. The infamous Lu winds, hot and dry, swept in from the Rajasthan desert, turning each afternoon into a test of endurance. For peasants, whose lives were spent beneath that blazing sky, the heat was not an inconvenience but a constant companion. Fields demanded their labour from dawn to dusk, and the body carried the weight of sweat and exhaustion into the night. When the day's toil finally ended, sleep was not just a necessity, it was a fragile kind of salvation. But to close one's eyes in such oppressive heat required more than fatigue. It demanded wisdom. Generations had learned how to shape homes, habits, and rituals around the cruelty of summer. Their methods were not inventions of comfort, but of coexistence. Small, ingenious ways to turn the burning world into a place where dreams could still survive. A peasant's house, known as a kucha house, was not built to resist the heat. It was built to breathe with it. Made from a mixture of mud, straw, and cow dung, the walls stayed cool even when the sun raged outside. The thick clay absorbed moisture from the air, releasing it slowly through the evening, a natural air conditioner long before the idea existed. The roofs were flat, woven from palm leaves, dry grass, or bamboo mats. They let the trapped warmth escape as night fell. Small, unglazed windows, no glass, no frames, invited the faintest breeze to slip inside. The floors were beaten earth, smooth and dark, often sprinkled with water at dusk so the rising vapour could cool the air. These homes were alive in their own way. They inhaled during the day and exhaled at night, part of the same ecosystem that governed every breath and movement. Within their walls, the peasants did not fight the heat, they shared space with it, shaping a rhythm of living that turned survival into quiet art. As the sun sank behind the horizon and the land glowed red with fading fire, the villages of medieval India began their nightly ritual of cooling. The end of the day was a ceremony of patience, performed in every courtyard and rooftop. Women drew water from the well, their brass pots catching the last light, and poured it gently over the clay walls and the earthen floor. The cool liquid hissed softly as it touched the hot surface, sending up little clouds of steam that drifted like incense. This was not merely about temperature, it was about transition. The act of wetting the home marked the shift from labour to rest, from the harshness of day to the calm of evening. Children splashed near the well, laughing as they bathed in the cooling water. Men rinsed their faces and feet, washing off the dust of the fields. A faint fragrance rose, the smell of wet earth, miti ki khushbu, a scent that Indians still call the perfume of the monsoon. Inside and outside, the homes breathed easier. Lanterns flickered. A calm silence followed the ritual sounds of water and clay. This was the hour of shanti, a word meaning peace, the time when even the wind seemed to pause out of respect. Only then could the people of the plains prepare for the fragile sleep that awaited them in the heat of the night. To rest the body after such a day, peasants relied on one of the simplest yet most brilliant inventions of Indian life, the charpoy, a wooden frame stretched tight with woven jute, cotton, or coir ropes. The charpoy was light, breathable, and perfectly suited for a land that refused to cool. Its genius lay in its emptiness. Air flowed freely through the weave, carrying away body heat. Unlike solid beds, it did not trap warmth, but released it into the night. The charpoy could be lifted easily, carried into the courtyard, or placed atop the flat roof where the wind was strongest. Sometimes families gathered together, a sea of charpoys arranged under the stars. Lying on those humble beds, one could feel the universe above, the Milky Way stretching like a pale river, the hum of insects below, and the slow rhythm of the night. The charpoy was not only furniture, it was philosophy. It reminded its owner that comfort did not come from what surrounded the body, but from how the body accepted the world. In the furnace of an Indian summer, it was not the bed that made sleep possible, it was the wisdom of breathing with the wind. When the heat refused to fade, peasants of medieval India turned their eyes upward, to the roofs. The flat chat of every house became a sleeping ground beneath the stars. At dusk, families climbed the narrow ladders with mats, water pots, and their beloved charpoys. The surface of the roof was swept clean and lightly sprinkled with water, releasing a cool breath as the droplets met the warm clay. The air up there was softer, freer, and more forgiving than within the walls below. Children were laid in the middle, surrounded by elders on either side, a simple way to shield them from wandering insects or sudden gusts of wind. Overhead the sky shimmered with constellations, and sometimes a stray breeze drifted down from the distant hills. Sleep came slowly, lulled by the hum of crickets, the crackle of distant fires, and the rhythmic breathing of cattle resting below. These nights on the roof were more than an adaptation. They were tradition. Families spoke quietly before sleep, telling stories of gods and heroes, their voices mingling with the sounds of the earth. The line between the human and the natural world blurred. Beneath that immense sky, peasants learned that to rest was to surrender, to let the body melt into the night, trusting that the dawn would come cool and gentle once more. Clothing during summer nights in medieval India was as light as air and as thoughtful as any ritual. Men wore thin cotton dhoti or lungi, tied loosely around the waist to let every breeze pass through. Women draped themselves in delicate sari woven from soft, breathable cotton, the fabric fluttering like mist with each movement. No one covered themselves with heavy blankets. Instead, they used thin, damp cloths, sometimes sprinkled with well water, to draw the heat out of their skin. Children often slept bare-chested with a cool towel laid gently over their chest to calm the heartbeat. Cotton, harvested and spun locally, was not merely fabric. It was a living part of the land, a gift that cooled the body like shade cools the soil. It absorbed sweat, released heat, and smelled faintly of earth and wind. To wear cotton was to be in dialogue with nature, not to resist it. In those long nights of still air, clothes were not armour but acceptance, a way of breathing with the world. The simplicity of their attire carried a lesson modern people often forget, that true comfort does not come from insulation, but from harmony. Night in medieval India was never silent. It was alive, filled with scents, murmurs, and a rhythm that soothed weary bodies. The smell of wet earth mingled with the faint sweetness of camellia, jasmine, that bloomed near doorways. From nearby fields came the distant call of frogs, the steady song of crickets, and the soft grunt of cattle turning in their sleep. Smoke from cow-dung cakes or rice husks spiraled upward, carrying a sharp yet oddly comforting scent used to keep insects away. The peasants didn't fight these sensations, they embraced them. The rustle of palm leaves, the buzz of a mosquito near the ear, or the slow breath of a sleeping ox became part of the night's tapestry. For those who worked from sunrise to sunset, these sounds were not disturbances but lullabies. Children would whisper stories about gods walking unseen through the warm air, and the elders would smile, listening to the living breath of the land. The night was not a void but a companion, an organism that breathed alongside them. In that deep symphony of scent and sound, sleep arrived quietly, like another element of nature, soft, imperfect, and profoundly human. Peasants of medieval India understood that what entered the body shaped how peacefully it could rest. Supper was always light: steamed rice, lentils, a bit of curd, and sometimes a handful of fresh vegetables. Heavy meals were avoided, digestion generated heat, and heat was the enemy of sleep. Before bed, a simple ritual unfolded. Some drank cool water infused with lemon and salt to replace minerals lost in sweat. Others preferred a glass of milk stirred with turmeric, a drink believed to calm both body and spirit. Children were gently massaged with sesame or coconut oil, their limbs glistening in lamplight, their skin cooled by touch and affection. It was as much love as it was science. These small gestures carried centuries of quiet understanding. The body must be soothed from the inside before the mind could drift away. There were no sleeping potions, no grand remedies, only rhythm. The peasants' diet, their oils, and their nightly drinks all served one purpose: to bring the inner fire of the day to rest, allowing the soul to float lightly between the warmth of the earth and the whisper of the stars. For the peasants of medieval India, sleep was not merely a bodily need, it was a sacred state of balance. In Hindu philosophy, rest was seen as a reflection of the divine slumber of Lord Vishnu, who floated eternally upon the cosmic ocean, dreaming the universe into existence. When the nights grew unbearable and the air refused to move, villagers whispered small prayers before closing their eyes, asking Vishnu for Nidra Shanti, the peace of sleep. Some households kept tiny clay idols beside their beds, their surfaces cool from evening water. Before lying down, they bowed lightly, acknowledging that rest itself was a form of surrender, a reminder that even gods must pause to renew creation. This belief gave meaning to endurance. To sleep calmly in the fire of summer was not weakness, but harmony. Dreams were also considered messages. A dream of water, of rain, or of flowing rivers was seen as a blessing, a sign that the monsoon would soon return. Even in their exhaustion, peasants found comfort in this spiritual rhythm. Sleep was prayer without words, worship without temples, a quiet conversation between the human body and the cosmos itself. Without fans, without ice, and without modern comfort, the peasants of medieval India found rest beneath the burning sky. They mastered the art of coexistence, with heat, with dust, with silence. Through clay homes, woven beds, damp cloths, and humble prayers, they built a world where endurance was indistinguishable from grace. Every drop of water, every breath of wind, every sigh at dusk carried the memory of a civilization that learned to survive not by resisting nature, but by listening to it. They found coolness not in invention, but in understanding, an ancient wisdom modern life too often forgets. In those endless nights of summer, the peasants did not dream of comfort. They dreamed of balance, and in doing so they taught generations that peace is not the absence of heat, nor the triumph over hardship, but the quiet acceptance that even within fire the human spirit can rest.